Shin Ultraman, what a movie. Confusing at times with stylistic angles and an elongated story. But one thing that stood out in this film was the major turnout for the Ultraman movie. And that's what we will be talking about today, so take a deep breath and let's henshin up as we have a lot to say. Kezza, henshin! On a cold, rainy, stormy night, I went to the screening with friends, not expecting it to be so busy. But there we all were, a good decent crowd of people in an Odeon in Brighton, watching a Japanese movie. That's the greatest part of this for me. I wasn't expecting the turnout to be so successful, but indeed, most rows had groups of people on them, as devoted fans of Ultraman shared and introduced their friends the glory of Ultraman. The friends had no idea what it was, and were there to learn and experience something new, I guess. I literally asked some of them. They had no idea what they were there for. There were also fans of tokusatsu who were just ecstatic to see a movie that was 1, Japanese, and 2, tokusatsu. I was one of those people, breathtaking and transported to Japan, watching it in awe of this movie that was in front of me. And I literally was smiling most of the movie because I was so happy. My cheeks actually hurt. But yeah, it was because I enjoyed the film okay, but also because we rarely see any Japanese things here, only really at Comic-Cons. But lately, the genre of anime and Japanese movies have recently gotten some attention from the Western audience, and are slowly coming to the UK and America and becoming more and more mainstream. Now, as a British fan of the toku genre, I could not be happier, but now I have experienced this in the cinema, on a big screen, with my large Diet Coke, no ice, I know specific, I need and want more. Clearly from the turnout of the film, there is a want, but this is also just an observation of one screening of 2 showings of one of 2 cinemas that showed the movie in the UK. Sorry, I hope that made sense. I'm saying I wasn't in all the screens when it happened, for most of the showings obviously, but we were all there for the subbed movie, and mostly we all enjoyed the heck out of it. We audibly laughed multiple times. Did you know that a Hideki Anno movie from the Shin collection could be funny? I mean, I wasn't expecting that. But that was a long explanation for the screening. Now, let's explain a bit about the movie we watched, the cast and the crew, our initial thoughts about the film, and final statements. I feel like I'm writing an essay. Moving on. Ultraman, for those who don't know, follows the story of Japan being attacked by big monsters named kaiju. The government sets up safety organizations or teams that should protect and help the people in times of these attacks. But they are soon joined by an Ultraman, a giant alien you could say from the land of light, in Nebula M78. They fight together to protect the Earth. Now the Ultraman series has many seasons, starting in 1966, and is still going to this very day with Ultraman Deca. Shin Ultraman is truly a love letter from the director, who watched these toku shows from a very young age, also creating Shin Godzilla and most recently Shin Kamen Rider. I hope we get Shin Kamen Rider in the cinemas too. That would be awesome, just saying. Now for the movie. Our showing started off with an interview from the main actor, Takumi Saito, playing as Shinji Kaminaga, our Ultraman, and another interview with our director, Shinji Higuchi. Both of these interviews were very wholesome and sweet. Takumi talking about his father working on the set of Ultraman Taro and his memories of that, and Shinji very humbly asking us to laugh and enjoy the movie, which again we laughed at and got ready to watch the film finally. Now, I won't go saying everything that happened in this movie, as that's spoilers and a waste of a cinema experience, but I will identify a few things, a few Easter eggs and changes to the story, and will definitely touch on my overall thoughts, as there were some great moments, but also some confusing ones. Let's just leave it at that. The movie starts with a quick history catch-up on the establishment of the SSSP, S-Class Species Suppression Protocol, or what I like to call them as SP, mentioning a few kaiju that were the foundations for the department, including Godzilla and many more. I think they must have used old footage of the original shows and movies, or even old techniques such as suitmation, which means someone is in the suit, as well as sound effects and logos, a real nostalgic appreciation of the OG shows, and this made me very excited. Just the sound effects were enough to make me gush a bit, and that dun 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 classic. The SSSP starts as a team of 4 members, made up of Kamio Tamura, Hidetoshi Nishijima, leader of the SSSP, Kaminaga, Takumi Saito as our strategist, Akahisa Taki, Daiki Arioka, a physicist, Yumi Funaberi, Akari Hayami, a biologist. They are on the case when Ultraman appears before them, and unfortunately Kaminaga dies. I want to point this out as it's not 100% clear what happened here, but as I knew how Ultraman worked, I understood what was happening, and this is a definite Ultraman trait. When this unidentified being from space landed, the force of their entry killed Kamanaga when he was saving a child. Yikes. Normally in Ultraman shows, when a new Ultraman comes down to Earth, they normally take or copy the appearance of a human, normally one who has passed away, and takes their place. For example, in another Ultraman series, Ultraman Mebius took the appearance of a young man named Hiroto-ban, who was floating alone in a spaceship that was stuck in the Ultra Zone. And yes, I only know bits of the OG show and Ultraman Mebius to relate and comment on. Apologies. Upon defeating the kaiju with his spacium beam, they disappear but reappear as Kamanaga soon after. This is a specific thing to Ultramen, and is normally quite emotional when they find out the origins of their human form. But let's continue. Also, a little fact, they normally have like this timer on their chest, but this Ultraman does not have one. But their colors change instead, which I don't think is normal. But anyway. Hiroko Asami Masami Nagasawa joins the team as the analyst after the appearance of the alien now named Ultraman, as she exudes confidence and shows thorough skill in her job. I love her character, but she does this really odd thing where throughout the movie she starts just slapping her ass, and others later on as a motivator. Many of the people I talked to after the movie were confused and unsure what to think of it. But it was just a weird thing to see so often. I could see what they were trying to do, have a way to empower herself with confidence, a yasha moment. But the smacking of the ass, showing the ass multiple times, was just uncalled for and strange. You could easily do what Kyoryoja Kingu does at the beginning of each fight, or a fighting pose shown in any anime or show. But why? Why the butt? Just don't touch the butt! But I digress. This first scene where she is introduced is so interestingly filmed, and these camera angles continue through the film, from under the table, round a bag, from a computer viewpoint as they stare down at us. We will talk about this more later, but it is very interesting. Now, to quickly summarize the rest of the movie, we meet 3 aliens, and Asami turns giant. Alien Zarab involves Ultraman and the government in a scheme where Ultraman is kidnapped and his identity is revealed, making him the villain. But due to friendship and teamwork, it all works out. Another alien, Mephius, bring an offer to Earth that they can't refuse. Typical human governments wanting more power that ends up with Asami Giant. And this, I mean, it represents a certain percentage of the human race and their urges. At least we could thank Mephius for deleting it all after. Oh, also quick note, this was really cool for me. Koji Yamato, the actor of Mephius, is also a Kamen Rider, and a lot less people will think this is cool, but he was a character for a Japanese drama I watched when I was getting into Japanese dramas and anime, playing the main antagonist Shuji Tokita at Senshin no Danshi. Great drama. But continuing on to the final alien, we meet Zophi, who has come from the Land of Light to bring back Ultraman, as he has committed crimes and has been ordered to eradicate Earth with Zeton, a weapon of mass destruction to wipe out humanity and elongate our dangerous potential to be a threat. I wanted to highlight these aliens specifically as I wish to identify them in the context of the greater Ultraman series, and also comment on just how nice it is to have all these references and have them done well. Firstly, Zarab is indeed an alien from the planet Zarab, known for creating illusions. Mephius is a race of aliens coming from planet Mephius, known for wanting the Earth for themselves, and uses his intelligence to manipulate humanity. Charming, I'm sure. And finally, Zophi is from the planet Zophi. Nah, I'm kidding. They are an intergalactic defense force commander for the Land of Light, known as the leader of the Ultra Brothers. Though Zophi isn't from the planet Zophi, that gigantic weapon of mass destruction, Zeton, is actually from another planet. Zeton is a beetle-like kaiju, first appearing as a bioweapon from the planet Zeton. There you go, 3 for 3. Through the Zeton battle, we see humanity's weakness, but also their will to live, which is beautifully shown by Taki, as he falls into despair, surrounded by his fear. But with the help of his teammates and the trust of the Ultraman, he grows and has the will to live again. This moment of absolute fear and sudden inspiration is beautiful and almost raw to the emotions. I don't know what I would do in this situation, honestly, but the bravery is worth it as Kamanaga goes to sacrifice himself for humanity in a final attempt to stop Zeton with the knowledge that the humans came up with. And Zophi admires Ultraman and humanity's will to fight, and sends him back to Earth, where he wakes up dazed but surrounded by the SSSP. The this is pretty much the whole movie in a nutshell, but overall, it was great. Let's talk about my initial thoughts and discuss the future of Japanese films or even Asian films in general in Western cinemas. Initially, when the film finished, there was a buzz in the air. Everyone automatically started to look around and discuss with friends and strangers, which happened to me all the way home, by the way. Literally, all the way home. It almost felt like a Marvel film. Everyone discussing the OG shows, other shows, asking the newbies what they thought. Were they traumatized? Were they scared for their life? Nah, they were good. They were good. But it was funnier than we all expected though. Jokes all around, almost all hit perfectly every single time. But my only issue, well, there's a few issues. The first one was it felt almost like a homage to the show. Now obviously that's not a bad thing, but the movie felt like it included a whole season of Ultraman. There were several villains, multiple story twists and bends in just under 2 hours. Once one villain ended, we all assumed it was over, and then it continued, and continued, and continued. But it wasn't boring, nor did it drag out. If anything, it moved too quickly. Felt the movie was trying to reference a whole show before the end, and that's brave. Another issue I found was the way they wrote the main female lead, introducing her as a confident and skillful person in her craft, but then over-sexualizing her? She smacked her ass multiple times and slapped other asses too to motivate them. She was made into a giant, there were implications of people filming up her skirt, and then when trying to find Mephius, Ultraman had to sniff her down to her midsection to catch a scent. If it was meant to be a romantic thing between them, it didn't feel like it. It seemed she wasn't written to be a romantic interest, but partners in kaiju beating. But the fact that Ultraman had to sniff her almost in an overly sexual and awkward way was uncomfortable to say the least. There were many ways to make it natural, less awkward, more romantic than this friendship gone weird thing if they wanted them to be romantically involved. But anyway, enough of me complaining. This film overall was fucking beautiful. From the kaiju monsters that were CG'd and the trippy but interesting camera angles, it is fair to say it was a feast for the eyes. But I don't know why the Ultraman and humanoid aliens looked weird as hell CGI'd. Also, what is this freaking move? Never seen this before. I almost wish they sticked with this suitmation technique but improved on it. However, I do understand the perks of CGI and how good it can be, so I'm not too bothered as much, and it didn't distract too much from the movie. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience of Shin Ultraman, but even more, I enjoyed the experience of watching a Japanese movie in the cinema with fellow fans new and old. There was an energy to the room. Everyone looked like they were entranced, but maybe because we were in awe that we finally got to see a Toku movie live in the cinema. It could have been but we all were there to watch it. I think this is something that needs to happen more often. Please bring more movies over, even if it is just one movie a month or something. With the right movie, the crowd will come. People travel to London and Brighton to see this live. People will travel to see more, believe me. I would. Just imagine if films like Shin Ultraman or the Roaring Kenshin live action movies were shown at the cinemas in the West. I would freak out and lose all my money, but that's not the point. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on Shin Ultraman and hope you get to see this movie too. See you next time. Kezza, Henshin! またね!